That's a very important argument. HS2, a high-speed rail network that you still won't be able to use by the time your children are safely enrolled in their nursing homes, is causing havoc near the Buckinghamshire town of Amersham. A huge sinkhole opened up yesterday just above the finished Chiltern Tunnel, part of HS2's London to Crewe route. The hole, approximately 4 yards across and 13 feet deep, was brushed off by HS2 and blamed on the field's pre-existing condition. Next, they'll be talking about the field's comorbidities. I suppose the fact that the project's costs are about 70 billion over budget can also be blamed on pre-existing conditions too. But I'm delighted to be joined by one man who has made it his duty to see HS2 stopped. Green Party councillor for Newbury, Steve Masters. Steve, thank you so much for coming in. You've really campaigned hard to stop this. I'm concerned about the money, particularly, but you were saying to me earlier, some of the wildlife damage is irreplaceable.
Absolutely, and I agree with you on the money. It's a phenomenal amount of money, that the country can ill afford, especially in these times of fiscal strife, and after 13 years of conservative austerity. We need to be, reinvesting that in proper public services, proper public rail network, investing in the latest infrastructure, in the current infrastructure to make sure that we've got a rail service that's fit for the people of this country. So we need to abandon HS2. And as you said, the wildlife impact has been incredible. I spent 3 months fighting HS2 near Great Missenden in the wood that inspired Roald Dahl's.
Oh yes, Fantastic Mr. Fox.
Yes,
which I've read to my children many times. Yes. I can even quote bits of it.
Yeah. So we need to look at how we appreciate our environment. The UK is one of the most depleted biodiverse countries in the world. We often think about the depletion of the Amazon, but our own habitats in the UK have been eroded. Since I was born in 1970, for example, we've lost 50-60% of our biodiversity. And this is irreplaceable. Ancient woodland, by its very definition, does not spring up.
Is irreplaceable.
And the mitigation from HS2 has been woeful. They planted saplings, many of which died in the heat wave last year. So we do need to do that. And activists like myself, local residents, are now forbidden from protesting HS2. There's an injunction that's back in court in Birmingham tomorrow, and it's draconian. And there's more and more draconian laws coming in, as you know, that inhibit peaceful and democratic process.
Tell me about the sinkholes. Does this?
So you mentioned that the tunnel is finished. It's not.
Okay.
There's still some way to go. They're coming under Shadlows Lake at the moment, and they're going to be approaching the Missenden River. And as you mentioned, they talked about a pre-existing geological
condition. Yes.
Well, surely they should have. I think Martin Tett, the leader of Buckinghamshire, he talked to the HS2 today, and they talked about random flints affecting. So if a machine is affected by random flints in a geology that they supposedly surveyed, but HS2 have failed at every level to show decent surveying, decent assessments by on the ecology front. They cannot be trusted. It's another vehicle for extracting large amounts of public money into corporate and private hands, and we need to look at that as a nation.
It's not exactly Isambard Kingdom Brunel, is it, who did all the surveying himself, who spent hours and hours going through the whole route of the Great Western Railway. Every bit of it he knew. He managed Box Tunnel, that incredible feat of engineering, which with technology that was so much less good than we have today.
But activists have talked about the aquifer, that bedrock of chalk, that supplies a large proportion of London's water supply. Once it's damaged, there's no mitigation, realistically, to repair that damage. So we already saw in Ruislip Rugby Ground several weeks ago, where they had expulsions of the chemicals that they're using to lubricate and the drilling machine coming up through the rugby field. So they don't know what they're doing. They've got a blank check.
Well, the amounts of money are eye-watering.
They are eye-watering, and that's a national scandal, Jacob.
Well, I agree with that. One of the things that always interests me, and it's a mistake politicians make again and again, is the sunk cost fallacy. Because you've spent 10 billion, you will carry on and spend another 60 billion or another 90 billion.
It's like the gambler in the casino.
Absolutely.
I'm coming back and I will win next time.
Whereas it's better to say, we've wasted 10 billion, let's stop, let's save the 70, 80, 90 billion. But people are very reluctant to do that because they look at the sunk cost.
Absolutely.
And think that that is wasted money rather than the money that they're going to spend.
So, we need, as a country and as a government, we need to take our, if, there's lots of talk about HS2 being about linking the North and closing
Well, that bit stopped because...
Well, if it was really about the North and giving an economic boost to the North, Jacob, we would have started in the North and got the Transpennine route sorted. The Transpennine route's now been taken into public hands because the private company have been, unable to run it properly for the people of the North. I'm from West Yorkshire. I grew up in a mining village. Back in my younger days, we had public transport we were proud of. It was cost effective and we could get everywhere. And we need to go back to that. We need to bring the rail industry into, the rail service back into national ownership, along with water companies. And don't get me started on the water companies.
That's a different discussion, and I'm not going to necessarily agree on that. But what I do think is that we've got to look also at what's happened through the pandemic. I may not like working from home. I may think it's a bad idea, but that's what millions of people are doing, and therefore the need for railways is not what it was when the case for HS2 was made.
There's not the case for a high-speed rail link as it's suggested with HS2. There is still a need for a public railway. There's still people commuting. There's still people travelling, and we do, this is where we probably disagree. We need to get, if we're going to, address climate change, we need to get people out of cars. And offering an alternative that is cost-effective, reliable, and timely is what will get people out. So we run the railways as a national service. Roads are run as a national service because we invest billions in roads for people to use, and they boost the economy.
I'm glad we've run out of time because we were doing so well on the Blue-Green Alliance until we got onto the motor car, where we're not going to agree. But thank you, Steve, and I hope you'll come back again. The HS2 contractor, Align, declined to comment on the story. They are so wet, these big businesses. They really ought to be held accountable and answer reasonable questions when they fail. But that's all from us. Up next, it's the